I'm not gonna cry. I would say that I have to reiterate. I mean, she had characteristics that were not just incredible or awesome or remind me of my mother type thing, but it was more so that she was completely different. You know what I'm saying? She was completely different. Her personality. She says I'm playful, but that's the jokester. But it matched. That chemistry matched, and so yeah, it just the energy, the inner presence. You know what I'm saying? Being comfortable. The initial being somewhat timid to talk to her in the beginning, like all of that went out of the window once, you know what I'm saying, I got to know her. You know what I'm saying? It was just like it felt right. It all felt right. It all came together. So
In comparisons to previous relationships, how did she compare or how did she stand out?
goal oriented, knew what she wanted. She accomplished it. You know what I mean? We talk a lot. We can talk about, what we want to do in life and what we want to do, but I watched her, you know what I'm saying, check stuff off her list. You know what I mean? I'm like, wow, okay, she's spot on. She's determined, you know what I'm saying? She's going to do what she wants to do, you know what I'm saying, in life. And so you want somebody that kind of matches what you have going on. I had goals and stuff like that, but she knocked it out. She was like, I'm going to go to school. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to get this license. Okay, boom. I'm going to go, I'm going to buy a car. Save my money to buy a car. Boom, she did that. You know what I mean? All while, you know what I'm saying, being involved in a relationship. I mean, she still was focused. She still was doing it.
One, as far as us growing up in the church, I knew that she had the morals and the upbringing of what I wanted in a wife, as a friend. And two, just watching her around, being around other people, knowing that even with her, me and her talking, she never judged me for what I did or what I was when I actually like left the church or when I was out in the world. But I knew that with her, I could just be myself, and I didn't have to pretend to be something that I wasn't. And for that, I knew that she would be the one for me.
That question, you can always say the good things about a young lady in your relationship. Where the test comes to me is when at your worst points, health issues, how fast your woman stands up to you, backs you, and there, no matter how ugly, she stands right there holding your hand, coaching. That's when you realize she is your good thing, your armor. That's how I know she was the good thing for me.
How did I know she was my good thing? Well, honestly, when I realized that she had a sense of humor and she kind of liked some of the same things that I liked, um, that she put up a challenge. She wasn't like going with everything that I said. Like she didn't just agree with me just to agree. She agreed to disagree. And when she agreed to disagree, she explained to me why she agreed to disagree. So me coming from or being from Georgia, I really had not experienced this type of, I would say, wall, a person putting up this type of wall. Usually, I'm not going to say that I always got what I want, because there were times in life when I was in relationships that put up, just as hard of a fight. But no one really took the time to explain things to me like she did, to go in depth. And we used to stay up. I think what really got me and what really reeled me in was we used to stay up at night and we would talk on the phone all night until the morning. I look up and the sun would be coming up. Girl, you realize it's 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning. We've been on the phone all night just talking, talking, talking. So the communication was there. The communication was there. The loyalty was there. The respect was there. And for me, when I saw that I could actually hold a conversation and build with her, that's what made me say, yeah, I think I got something. I think I found something here, and I just stuck with it.
He was husband ready. Ready is the key word. Well, he said so. And I believed him. He came to me and he said, let's go get married. And I looked at him like I'm looking at him right now. And I said, okay. And so we went and got married. Yeah. The main thing that made Barry different is foundation. Seeing his foundation, seeing him active in what I knew was my foundation is what made the difference. Other people that I dated, like I said, it was all for fun. And as teenagers, that's what we do. We want to experience everything. We want to do the things that we didn't get to do, at home, with our parents. But when it got real, I knew that his foundation and my foundation matched, and that this is what I needed for to be equally yoked in life. Yeah.
The characteristics, first of all, thank the Lord, he was a hard worker. He was a great provider. He had a daughter that was from a previous relationship. So I saw how he, was, that he could be a great father to, children that we could have, down the line. He had that foundation, that spiritual foundation that a lot of times now you don't see as much. So that really just, really just made my heart like, woo, yes. That's who I'm looking for. He has everything that I wanted. Somebody who, of course wouldn't judge me, who would be there for me. He treated me like a queen, not a princess, but a queen. He would set me up. So, and I knew that, if anything came about, he will always be there for me, have my back.
Well, first thing was that he treated me like a lady. There are a lot of women in this world, but not enough ladies. And that was the first thing that I knew, because Johnny showed much chivalry. He's from old school, and he opened my doors. And he still does. We still hold hands. He pulls out my chair. He still does. And he gave me and always give me the ultimate respect.
The major one was he was willing to fight with me. Like he didn't leave my side, no matter what it was. If it was, I just had a rough day or court didn't go well, whatever it was easy to talk to him. He truly became my friend. He didn't question. It was never, well, what did you do wrong? It was never a blame game. It was always find out how you contributed to this issue, and let's work on you. And once we work on you, everything else will fall into place. And that was something that I hadn't experienced before. It was always your fault, your fault, your fault, your fault. So I brought that into our friendship, even though I shouldn't have. I brought it because that was in my head. I had made the bad choices. I had picked the wrong person, and everything was my fault. And he was willing to go to bat with that. He took his bat and took that ball out, and he was like, I'm gonna hit it, swing at it every day until it's gone. And it took a while because
Yes, it did.
I was stuck in it. Like I had been told the same thing over and over again. So getting that out of my head was a lot of work. And he didn't have to. He could have said, lady, you got too much baggage. I'm gonna go ahead on about my business. But he didn't. He saw a light that I had that I thought was gone. And I love that because he was willing to say, listen, your light doesn't have to be bright. I can shine bright for both of us. You just hold on, it'll be better. And even through all the little tiny things like not letting him come to my house or see my kids or was spending the night with each other. There was no sex. It was just, it was a lot. I knew that he wasn't
Right.
going to be a burden. It wasn't going to
Right.
be a deep challenge to deal with somebody that was financially sound and stable and
Right.
and had a lot better ways to handle things than I did. So that's when I knew, because he definitely picked up everything that I lacked or dropped, and that I knew that wasn't easy because I dropped a lot of things. So that's when I knew he was a keeper.
Mynisha J. Rogers, minister, entrepreneur, and author of the Healing Network book states, "The key to believing, receiving, and maintaining our healing is found in our network, which consists of the FAR principle: faith, action, and relationships." She reminds us that God still heals. He healed before, He is healing now, and He will heal again. So now is the time to believe, receive, and maintain your healing. Get your copy today.
Well, I kind of knew because it wasn't really a persistent pursuing. But for whatever reason, we kept meeting. We kept coming back together. And
Our families too.
and our families, yeah. And I don't know, God just kept putting him in my face and putting me in his face, and then finally, I guess that was when he was like, I'm gonna talk to her. I'm gonna find out who she is and get her phone number. But I kind of knew after, like I said, after that first night, my encounter, I kind of knew, but I didn't make it like something that I was going to pursue. I was waiting for him to pursue me, but I already kind of knew that at some point we would be together.
I knew from first meeting her that this was somebody that I wanted to spend my life with, and wanted to be with and spend my life with. So I would have to agree. It just, she was always there. Her, like I said, our families kept coming together. It just happened. And God ordained it just happened. That's pretty much all I can sum it up to.
One of the main things, I know we did jump the gun with our son, but I think that was one of the grounding points for our union now, because I think if we didn't have him, it's a possibility that we probably wouldn't have been together. But I know that was one of the main pieces of the glue that brought us together. And like one of our pastors, she was like, she knew that, I guess it was like before she passed away, she kind of felt like she was like saying certain things to me on the side to like drawing me to like, hey, this is what you need to do when you get married. And then she was like, I can see this in you. And once we end up having our son, for me, it brought me closer to her. And with that, I could see how she nurtured and cared for him, and being that mother and loving, it actually drew me more to her.
He jumped the gun a little bit.
I'm sorry.
So we, kind of took, things into our own hands, and we actually became parents before, we became husband and wife. And so at that point, I had kind of put marriage and all that stuff, I kind of put that aside and really just wanted to focus on, our son and, being the best mom that I could. And even in that, like the way, because a lot of times, even with generations, like my grandmother, she had 6 children and her husband, left. And so it's like you don't want to continue that same cycle. And so I was kind of afraid. I'm like, okay, a lot of times I've seen relationships where, you have a baby and then out of nowhere, everything's all peachy keen, but once that baby comes, then everything just changes. But it didn't change. Like, he was still there. You know, he still loved me. Like, I mean, the baby shower that we had was just like so many people. They supported us. And so just seeing how he didn't leave, he was still there. He still, you know, treated me like I was number one in his life. I think that's what really, you know, said it for me.
Well, on my side, I've been through a lot of troubled relationships. In about 96, 90, no, come back, about 92, somewhere around that time, I gave up. I said the mind games, the cheating, I was tired. So one night, I was praying for my children. I was laying in the bed and I was just praying for my kids. I looked up into the night sky and I spoke to the Lord and I said, you remember I asked you when I was 18, I wanted to get married. I always wanted a wife. I'm now 33 years old. I said, please, extend your hand. I could love to have me a woman now. Lo and behold, the next day, my boss calls me to the office. Johnny, you have a phone call. Some guy, he said he needs you to call him. I said, okay, so I took the number and I went back to my apartment. I called him. The gentleman said, Johnny, I don't know if you remember me, but 3.5 years ago, you came here and applied for a job. This company that called me, and I hate to put it in these terms, said that, the guys told me that they don't really hire African Americans. And it kind of paused me a minute. But I said, okay. He said, I would like you to come in for an interview. So I went. We got along like two peas in a pod. He said, I want to hire you. I said, okay. Well, at this point, my career took off. They moved me from that property to another property. I went from Maryland, D.C., Virginia, all over the place. And I was and this craziest thing is, the last move was in Signet Tower at the time, where I met my wife. My path took off after request. That's when I know the Lord finally extended his hand. That's how I knew she was the one. And it was not my choice. It was choice of the Lord.
And I pretty much can mirror the same because I was done with dating, and the same as Johnny was done with all the cheating, the lying. You give your heart to someone and you try, no matter what type of relationship you're in, you still want to give your best. And I've always been told, you know, you can do good things and be a good person and do what you want to do in your relationship, but you save everything for your husband. So at the time, again, and it's funny because I noticed that a lot of people around my age group at that time were getting married and things like that. And I was kind of a little concerned because I was like, I know I have a good heart. I know I'm a good person. I know the type of background that I had. I know how the upbringing I had. And I was like, why is it that I can't find a husband? You know, what is it that's wrong with me? So at that time, you know, you can't not only look for what you want in a person, you still have to do a self-check. So I did that. I had to say, okay, what is it that you have to offer someone? What is your good and what's your bad? What is it that you're willing to compromise? And what is it that you basically do a self-check. So I said, you know what? I went back to the saying that my family members told me. He said, when you want a husband, it's for the guy to seek his prize, and it's not for the woman to look for a husband. So I said, so I said, you know what, Father? Then I'm going to ask you. Because I know if I ask you, then I know what I'm finding is not going to be trash. I know he's going to be the one. So I said, the thing about it is, too, if I ask you, how is it that I know he is going to be the one? Because I know the devil can play tricks on you sometimes. So I said, you know what? I said, let's have a pact. Let's have a saying. I said, okay, I know he's the one. If he comes to me, and I can't remember exactly what I said at the time, but I know the word honor was in it. And I said, and it had to do with a date. So I think it was something like, well, you know, I will be honored to take you out or to, to court you. And again, then those were the words that Johnny said when he came up to my desk. I would be honored if I could take you out. So I knew then. That's why I said in the beginning, if you go back to the answer that I provided earlier, is that I hesitated. And then that's when I thought, this is your husband. So then that's when I agreed to go out with him. So that's how I knew it was the Lord that sent him, and it wasn't of my choosing.
I would say how we knew God joined us was, you know how they say, if something's meant for you, it's meant for you. And you hear all of these little cliche sayings from like your elders and older people about how God will give you signs and God will let you know and all of these things. And, the truth of the matter is I think we both were looking for those signs. We were looking for God to tell us, okay, it's okay. The time is now. We both were afraid. I was coming out of a really bad relationship. She was coming out of a bad relationship. So we were kind of timid of moving forward or even giving love a second chance. And I think what started happening is we start reading the Bible together. We start praying together. We start attending church together and allowing God to kind of walk with us through, our courtship when we had a chance to actually get a chance to start dating and hanging out with each other. And, and I think God does speak to us through his word when we open our ears and we allow him to speak, to us through his word. And, I think one thing that stood out to me was, love is patient, love is kind. It seeketh not its own, things of that nature. I can't quote the scripture verbatim, but it just stuck with me. And, I thought about how patient we were with each other. I thought about how we struggled to maintain a friendship because we both wanted love. We both wanted to be loved, and we wanted to be loved by someone who was trustworthy, someone who was loyal, and who was going to be committed to us. So I think that was it for me.
Mine was a lot of the same. It was the patience, definitely. And when it came to finding God between us, because we both were raised pretty different. I'm from South Carolina, and I was raised Baptist. And I knew the Holy Ghost, and I knew scriptures, and I knew the Bible, but I knew it from what I had been taught. I had never kind of seeked it out for myself. And he was a lot better at that than I was. And when I would find myself in a position where I was just confused, I loved that you didn't just tell me what you thought about it. You didn't tell me how you dealt with it or how your family dealt with it. It was, let's just see what the Bible has to say. And when we started doing that, it eliminated a lot of the doubt that I had created, because I was that. Let me ask my mom. Let me ask his mom. Let me ask my friends. Let me ask somebody else. I never really referred to the Bible for it. So when he would walk me through the Bible and help me understand why these things are happening, why am I having to repeat these lessons? Like, I've already done this. I've already been hurt. Why am I doing it over again? And he just said it to me plain and simple. You'll keep doing it until you get it right. If God's not happy with the outcome, you'll go through it again. And you'll keep going through it until you get it done the way that God wants you to do it. And that was new for me. That wasn't, nobody had ever explained it that way. It was always do what the Bible says, do this, and love and forgive and have understanding. And in my first marriage, I did that. I understood. I forgave. I forgot about it. I didn't bring it up again. But all of that forgiving, I lost what really made me happy. I didn't know me anymore. I just became that old school wife that my grandmother had taught me to be. And she was like, if they cheat, then just forgive them and get over and, figure out what you did wrong, what you did to make him leave. So having all of that in my head and bringing it to him to clean up, like not on purpose to clean up, but that was my baggage. That was something that I didn't want to bring into a new relationship. And he was willing to sit down and break it down with me and point out things that I could do for myself. Not so much as blaming myself, but figuring out why I allowed someone else to tell me who I was as a person.
Right.
And that was more than enough. Like that was the void that I had. I didn't have somebody just telling me what I should do. He was showing me what I needed to do. And I'll be honest, I took him to see my grandma, and my aunt. Her name was Laverne, but we call her Tootie. And she had told me, she said, Paula, when you get married to this young man, because he's going to be your husband, she was like, when you go before the altar, she said that you need to take God with you.
Yeah.
She was like, stop trying to just marry the man. She was like, you need to marry him and God. And you need to understand that if he doesn't marry God too, then he's not for you. And I was confused. I was like, what is this lady talking about? These people need old fables. And my grandmother pulled me to the side. She was like, yeah, he kind of cute.
Yeah, that's the one.
That's the one.
Yeah.
And so, being from the South, your parents and your grandparents' approval was always something big to me. So when she told me, she's like, that's him. You better go ahead and snatch him up. And I was like, okay, maybe. He might be the one. But that definitely sealed it for me because it matched my feelings, matched my emotions, matched how he made me feel. And that was good for me.
I want to be a part of bringing excellent and compelling content to life. From finding talent as a casting director to producing strong projects for television and film. There's something amazing and beautiful when the casting director can help usher the actor into transforming into a character, helping them to see and be the character, understanding the character's life story without seeing a face because they're the face.
You happy? I thought when I gave myself up, that was enough for you to be happy. But obviously not. Obviously not.
My purpose is a gift from God, and I'm honored and humbled by it. Oprah Winfrey once mentioned that you know you're doing what you're purposed to do when you can do it for hours on end. I'm excited to be able to live in my purpose and bring Simone Baldwin Productions to serve and deliver.
I don't think that was hard.
No, God always had to be the center of our union. Because that's the only way, God is the only way that we really came together.
Yeah.
Because I think we were both kind of pursuing or going in different directions.
Mm-hmm. Like I said, you had your own thing you had going on.
Mm-hmm.
I had my own thing that was going on.
Yeah.
But I don't think the God factor was ever a problem.
No.
I don't think it ever was a problem because we were both walking in somewhat of what we were supposed to be doing.
Just not with the right people.
Yeah, just probably not with the right people.
Mm-hmm. But the God factor is what it was always there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, we talked about this. Of course, with us having that foundation, you have that sense of, I grew up in the church. I know who, Jesus is. I know who the Holy Spirit, having faith and everything. But honestly, I don't think that we really took putting God, as the center of a relationship seriously. At first. Not saying that we jumped the gun and we weren't supposed to be married, because I really do know within my heart and hearts that, we were supposed to be together. But I don't think that we really honestly and truly put God as the center. We knew Jesus on our, on our own, but I don't think we really took serious of how, how important
having God at the center of our relationship.
Having God at the center of our relationship, like for real.
At what point in your marriage did you start to incorporate him seriously?
Honestly, I would say
it was after, we started experiencing some like rough, I would say valley moments.
Yeah.
Where, okay, God is like, all right, I'm here.
Yeah.
When are you going to utilize me?
And that's when it was like, okay, this is real and we got to depend on him and nobody else but him.
Well, he's always been my center. I know that I have faults. So I rely on his strength and wisdom to help me overcome some of my instincts of being a male, or, you know, fighting for individuality and things of that nature. 'Cause some things, you know, you're strong about, beliefs and things like that, upbringings. But I always turn to him when I am in doubt or feel that he needs to be the mentor for me. So yes, he stays as a person in the center of my relationship. How about you, sweetie?
I come from a very deep-rooted religious background, family, so God has always been at the forefront of my life. And whenever Johnny and I, have conversations, or there's a little ripple effect or what have you, I always seek to Him. I pray. And sometimes I've even come down and say, "Baby, we need to talk, and let's pray about it." But I've, not to put anything, or pat myself on the back, but I'm pretty much the one that will come and do either a group prayer or what have you, or start off with a prayer, knowing that, okay, we can't fix things, or that we need you, Father, to pretty much settle things.
I would just say, just
He's a problem solver.
praying, asking God to help us. One thing that I think that I shared with her, that a method that I learned from an older pioneer, an older elder, was she told me, she said, if you ever want to know if God is real, she said, go get a notebook. I'm looking at it, go get a notebook? What am I going to get a notebook for? She said, and when you get that notebook, she said, I want you to just start writing it down, writing it like it's a journal. And she said, but when you write in it, she said, don't speak out what you write. She said, just write it down. But when you write it down, she said, in your mind, she pointed at her head, she said, in your mind, you address it to God like you praying to God and you talking to God, and you write it down each day. And each day you write it down, something down, and you talk to God. And then she said, go back about a month or two later and go back and read that journal. And she said, see where God has brought you from when you start writing in that journal to the day you start reading it. And you'll realize that God is real, because no one knows what you wrote in the journal or what you wrote in the book but you and God. So that'll show you that God is real, because where God would have taken you from and placed you at. And that's something that I think I shared with her. And what I used to do about her is I used to write to God about her all the time. Like, God, show me this about this young lady. Do this for me about this young lady. And I never mentioned it to my mother. I never mentioned it to my aunt. I never mentioned it to my brothers, none of my family members, no one. And it would just be like, a matter of fact, I remember one time we had separated for a while. And during that separation, well, we just stopped talking. I'm not gonna say separation, but we weren't really together though. But it was like we were really, really close friends, And while we were separated, I would use separated as a term. While we were apart, I went back and I read that journal. And when I went back and I read that journal, I was like, oh my God, I got to go back and make sure I grab this back, because all the stuff God has showed me about this young lady and this woman, and He's already shown me, but I'm being stubborn. I'm being, I'm not being submissive to what God is telling me, because I know He's talking to me, because the only person knows about this journal is me and God. So, and that was one way that I incorporated it. Him is to first start with Him and have an intimate relationship with God, where I feel like I can talk to Him about anything. And that's what the journal, and I still do that to this day. That's what my journal is for. I have a personal journal that I just talk to God through, and then I allow my writings, how the progression of my life goes, and I can see God working in my life. And I definitely saw that He placed her there in my life. Yep.
I think for me, it was more of the trusting my feelings and kind of trying to listen to what he was suggesting that I do. And at first I was not. I was like, I got 2 kids. I got to work. We got bills to pay. I ain't got time to sit down and write no journal. I'm going to just talk to God in the shower, cry if I need to, and call it a day. But I did it one day. I don't know what was going on, but it was a bad day for me. And I literally sat down and I decided that maybe I should write something down. Maybe he can fix it later and I'll come back and have some cool revelation about everything that I did. And I wrote in my journal that I ended up writing him a letter about, what was going on, how I was feeling. Because I could have talked to him about it, but I think a lot of times I would start conversations emotionally, and then it would end up me being frustrated because I couldn't get out what I wanted to say, because he either started to react to me with emotions and it wasn't the emotion that I wanted. So I started to write it, and I realized when I would write to God and then to him, it was easier because I just gave it to him to read. So there was no physical looks, there was no sound or inflection behind it. It was just whatever he read in the context that he understood. And that made it easier for me to really accept God and to say, you know what, when I write to both of you as if you're one, it was easier for me.
Okay.
And then I started to really understand the Bible a little bit more and why it was important, instead of just running to a family member or a friend, why it was important to just go to the Bible. And I know some people do it, but I don't really know what it's called, but I would just flip through it, like take the book and flip the pages, and wherever it stopped, that is what I would read. I would read the line, and then I would read the entire chapter, and then I would try to read as much of the book. But what I appreciated was that he didn't deter me from doing that. And when we read, and I asked him a question, if I got stuck on something, I would ask, and we would sit down and we would discuss it. And if it was something that I understood, I was like, okay, I get it. But if it was something that I felt was above my acceptance and knowledge, he didn't try to beat it into me.
What she didn't know is that I didn't know what I was talking about. I get on the phone and call one of them partners. Hey, what do you think about this right
he
here?
was
You
cheating.
know what I'm saying?
He was calling pastors and deacons. But
how I answer this question, I don't know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm saying? So,
yeah, but he made me believe that. Well, I mean, it was true. He didn't understand, so he was man enough to reach out to someone that did.
Yeah, if I ain't understand it,
And
I did.
for me, that was the definition of a leader. Like, you don't always have to know how to solve a problem, always know what to do, but you need to know who to go to. And I was just happy that he went to God, because sometimes I would go to God, but I would go to God with it was just personal. I almost felt like I was being selfish because it was just personal things, like, I don't want my cramps to be heavy this month, Jesus, It was just weird little things, but he taught me that it's so much more than that.
Yeah, and that didn't matter. You can go to God with anything. Yeah. It didn't matter. You can go to God with anything, and that was one thing that I thought was really, really cool, that she wasn't afraid to try. She wasn't afraid to go beyond what she already knew, and probably, I would say, try something different.
Yeah.
Try
Jesus.
Try Jesus. All right, go ahead.